Great to have you guys. And today evening, we're going to do this book, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. Okay, we're going to do the book reading. And the chapter that I will be reading is chapter 4, 5, and 6. So, first, I'm going to just read out the chapter's name. And you know what? Rich Dad, Poor Dad is not a tad easy book to do. I'm sure Alpana will agree. She's done the previous chapters. So, it's not a very easy book to read. And we don't want to fall asleep. Okay, there's a lot of statistics, there's a lot of numbers, there's a lot of American law and American instances. So I'll try and make it fun. Okay, now this is it. We are doing chapter 4, 5, 6. So we're going to do lesson 3, chapter 4, which says mind your own business. Okay, it sounds very cool. Mind your business. Yeah. And then we are doing chapter 5, which is lesson 4, the history of taxes and power of corporations. I was like, I myself fell asleep when I was reading this chapter. And for me to read this again is going to be difficult. I mean, quite a challenge. But I promise I will make sure nobody's falling asleep. The ones who want to fall asleep, please take a cup of coffee or tea and sit there and sip your coffee and tea. Okay. And we are doing chapter 6, lesson 5. It says the rich invent money. Okay. So before I want to start, I want to just understand from the people who have joined in. I would love to have you unmute your mics and tell me about what do you feel about this book. Have you read this book? Has anybody read this book? And does anyone want to share something, or it's the first time and you're like, okay, Rakhi, lap it on?
I think I'll share. I have read it a long time ago. So when I read it once again to do the chapter 1, 2, 3, it was literally like reading it once again. But it
Mhm.
started a lot of conversations. And because I was in India for a wedding, we had some acrimonious conversations where finally I dropped it. But
Hmm.
I found it a very interesting piece. But I would love to hear your perspective on that, when you do the next 3 chapters.
Oh, great. Jagrati, you haven't read the book. Thanks for your feedback. Thank you, Alpana. It is. You start a conversation with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. In fact, I was mentioning this to somebody, and the first thing they told me is that in 2022, Robert Kiyosaki, that is the author of this book, has officially gone on YouTube and proclaimed that he has a debt of $1.2 million, if you're aware of that. Okay. So, yes, he has gone outrightly and it's official. But that's the trick. So he feels that he is trying to get tax benefits, and there is nothing wrong about being in debt. And there is another author, I'm forgetting his name, but he's outrightly gone and refuted and provoked that author, saying this is an author who says go debt free. And he's like, let him go say what he wants. But Robert Kiyosaki is trying to prove his point. Okay, anybody has watched Robert Kiyosaki speak? Have you seen his videos on YouTube or any channels or any chat shows? Yeah, you have. So, what do you think about the author?
See, maybe I'm biased, but the first book of his that I read was Rich Dad Poor Dad, and I'm completely taken in by the gentleman. Though I was a little, the only thing that I kind of hold against him, and that's my bias, is when he wrote a book with Donald Trump.
Mm-hmm.
But otherwise, I enjoy listening to him. And again, as I said, that could be my bias. And then I've read a lot of books about him because I was also I was about to start for my foray into network marketing, and he's written a lot about that as well. So I love listening to him.
Okay. So, some of the videos that I stumbled on listening to Robert Kiyosaki, I keep reading, watching a lot of reels of successful people, and it's a lot of fun. Celebrities, actors, writers, um, mm, politicians know. So there was this one interview where the host tried to add words with Robert Kiyosaki. He tried to, like, if like the author says I want to do this, and the host tried to add 2 words, and Robert Kiyosaki just cut him out. Because one thing I like about Robert Kiyosaki, I think someone who knows money so much, he knows his subject. He is very critical, and you don't interrupt him. He's not going to be the kind person who's trying to impress you and say, oh, yeah, you're right, or correct your mistakes, or he doesn't really care too much about P's and Q's. So that was one thing that really took me back, because whenever I do a book reading or read a book, we all know that the authors, uh, readers will read your book because they know the author or they want to know the author. So that's why whenever I pick a book and read a book, and I like to know what the author is all about. So that's why I went through a few videos and stuff like that about Robert Kiyosaki. So now I'm going to do this a little different. Okay, I'm supposed to do chapter 4, chapter 5, chapter 6. Yeah. So like I said, chapter 4 is mind your own business. Chapter 5 is the history of taxes and power of corporations. And chapter 6 says that the rich invent money. I'm going to do chapter 4 last. Okay, I'm going to do chapter 4 last, because chapter 5 and chapter 6, I read it that way and I connected the dots. I connected the dots that way. Okay, so we will start with chapter 5. And like I promised, I'm going to make this interesting. Okay, I promise. So we are going to start with the history of taxes and power of corporations. So the ones who are who've just joined us, rich dad and poor dad, sometimes you have these two, what, an angel and a devil sitting on your shoulder, and you want to keep listening to who's saying what. So that's how this book has been framed. So you have an educated dad and you have a rich dad. Okay, so that's exactly what the author is trying to tell you, that it's not right. What the educated dad is saying, that doesn't mean it'll get you wealthy. He comes from a place of knowledge. But what the rich dad is trying to tell you, that he comes from a place of experience plus knowledge, and he's executed it into the world. And that's how you earn the wealth. You just can't get a college degree. You don't go to school. In fact, if you read the book, you'll understand that Robert Kiyosaki is not very for formal education, schools, colleges. He feels that the education system only makes us become employees and work for someone. Okay, so I'm going to start off with chapter 5. Okay, and we do chapter 6 quickly. I'm going to read some interesting stuff, and then I'm going to come to chapter 4, and I hope it's worthwhile. So we start with chapter 5, where he talks about taxes and the power of corporations. Initially, in the history of the world, in the history of the civilized world, with the East India Company and colonization and imperialism, when trade was going on, there were no taxes. There were no taxes. The whole concept of taxes was not there at all. So we have to start from then. So we'll do a little brief about when the taxes were started. He starts this chapter with a beautiful connotation by movie called Robin Hood. And Robin Hood got very famous because of the actor Kevin Costner. He's a drop dead gorgeous man. A lot of women, went crazy about Kevin Costner. Everything I do it for you. Na 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 na. So if I sing the song, you'll know, yes, 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 we have heard the song. So this movie was Robin Hood, played by Kevin Costner. But surprising, it comes in Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So what the author says is, my rich dad did not see Robin Hood as a hero, whereas the whole world saw him as a hero. He called Robin Hood a crook. Now, what was Robin Hood doing? Robin Hood may be long gone, but his followers live on. How often I still hear people say, why don't the rich pay for it? Or the rich should pay more in taxes and give it to the poor. So Robin Hood was basically going around. He was taking the wealth from the wealthy, and then he was distributing it to the poor in the forests, in the villages, and he was making sure that they had enough for them to feed on. And he was taking it from the aristocrats and the kings. So he would attack people's convoys in the jungles and loot from them, and then he would distribute it everywhere. Now, the author says this doesn't work. And this is the attitude which makes the poor poorer, and the middle income group, also the middle income group, even more poorer, because ultimately the rich are not paying the tax. So what happened is, both the governments, like you have the US and the UK, they introduced the taxation, and the way they got the people to vote for taxes, because everybody was against the policy of taxation. When taxes were introduced and people had to pay taxes in most of the countries in the world, the people refused. In the name of war, they paid. because they had to feed the soldiers and take care of the soldiers. But when regular people had to start paying taxes, people revolted. And this concept was brought in that let the rich pay the tax and the rich will pay for the poor. But eventually, the governments noticed that when their banks were getting full, and because there was more people to feed, now you can't just take from the elite and feed the masses. Everybody needs to contribute to that pot. They slowly brought down the taxes for the middle income group and the lower middle income group. So finally everybody got stuck in the tax bracket. They are paying the brackets, they're paying their taxes, and they're paying through their nose for it. We all know. Yeah. So I'm not going to get into politics and India and this thing and the number of taxes, when the Modi government came in and the number of taxes that we are paying. Even now, when you look at your bill, you'll see what you paid for the product and ding, 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 3, 4 taxes. Okay. So we will not make this book reading session political at all. So what I'm trying to say is, in fact, the famous Boston Tea Party, we all have read about it in the history, was nothing but a revolt against the tea industry, or the people who were brewing trees and tea, who were in the tea market, tea estates refusing to pay the taxes. So I'm going to quickly read something from this particular chapter, which makes more sense to and add to what I'm saying. So, although my highly educated dad was an expert on the history of education, my rich dad fashioned himself as an expert on the history of taxes. So, you see, the rich dad was informed and he knew that tax was the way to suck your money, right? So, rich dad explained to Mike and me that in England and America, originally there were no taxes. Occasionally, there were temporary taxes levied in order to pay for the wars. The king or the president would put the word out and ask everyone to chip in, like, okay, everybody, like it's like a booty, like let's all put in something to it. Yeah. So taxes were levied in Britain for the in Britain for the fight against Napoleon from 1799 to 1816, and in America taxes were levied to pay for the Civil War from 1816 to 1865. In 1874, England made income tax a permanent levy on its citizens. In 1913, an income tax became permanent in the United States with the adoption of the 16th Amendment to the Constitution. At one time, Americans were anti tax. It had been the excessive tax on tea that led to the famous Tea Party in Boston Harbor, an incident that helped ignite the Revolutionary War. And we thought Boston Tea Party, everybody was sitting on a ship and drinking tea. Yeah, that was not it. Right? Now, it took approximately 50 years in both England and US to sell the idea of a regular income tax. Now, with these historical dates fail to reveal is that what these historical dates fail to reveal is that both of these taxes were initially levied against only the rich. It was this point that rich dad wanted Mike and me to understand. He explained that the idea of taxes was made popular and accepted by the majority by telling the poor and the middle class that taxes were only created to punish the rich. This is how the masses voted for the law, and it became constitutionally legal. Although it was intended to punish the rich, in reality, it wound up punishing the very people who voted for it, the poor and the middle class. So how did that happen? Once government got a taste of money, the appetite grew, said Rich Dad. Your dad and I exactly opposite. That means the rich dad and the educated dad were pitched against each other. He's a government bureaucrat. I'm a capitalist. We get paid, and our success is measured on opposite behaviors. That is, who pays more tax and who doesn't pay tax. He gets paid to spend money and hire people. The more he spends, the more people he hires, the larger is his organization. And in the government, the larger the organization, the more he's respected because he's paying more tax. And here, the rich dad is saying, I hire, and the less money I spend, the more I'm respected by my investors. That's why I don't like government people. So that's why you see, we have to do this book reading with a little pinch of salt. Okay, as the government grows, more and more tax dollars will be needed to support it. So finally, it's not the rich who's paying. Yeah, everybody's paying their taxes. And who suffers the most? The middle income and the lower middle income. Okay, now, yet, when you study the history of taxes, so I'm not going to randomly read all the chapters, I've just marked bits and pieces. Yet, when you study the history of taxes, an interesting perspective emerges. As I said, the passage of taxes was only possible because the masses believed in Robin Hood theory of economics. take from the rich and give it to the poor. Yeah. So he feels this doesn't work. So one side you have the socialist, and another side you have the capitalist. The communists are not featuring in here at all. We have not spoken about them. Now, I quickly began to realize that the philosophy of the capitalist made more financial sense to me. It seemed to me that the socialists ultimately penalized themselves due to their lack of financial education. So this is the next criteria I'm going to bring in. This is what I took away from this chapter, because taxation is different in every country. There's no point for us sitting and reading this chapter and trying to understand why he's upset and how American taxation differs. And we are not here to debate about how Indian taxation varies, but what he says is financial education. So what is financial education? Okay, no matter what the take from the rich crowd came up with, the rich always found a way to outsmart them. That means the rich found a way to get themselves financially educated so they could get tax savvy. That means if you are informed financially, you have a chartered accountant or you have somebody who informs you. That's what we do. So they tell us how to get away from the capital gains. Like if you have a capital gain, what do you do so that you don't pay the tax? So you are neatly advised and told how to reduce your income tax. Yes or no? That's what the whole thing is about. So finally, this particular chapter is where the author is trying to say is that you need to be financially educated. So financially education in any business or any place, either we have people who educate themselves, so they know accounting. And if you don't know accounting, then you have a proper accountant who will tell you how to save on the taxes, your hard-earned money, how you can save. Okay, so yeah, so this is, it goes on and on and on. So this is where I have summarized again. What the author wants to say out here is you need to be very, very savvy on what accounting is. You need to know what accounting is. Yeah. So this is called as financial literacy. He's going further ahead and saying that this is called as financial literacy. The second thing he's talking about is investing. So what does financial education mean? He's breaking this into a couple of more factors, saying one is to know accounting, two is to know what investing is. How do you invest? So if you've had any capital gains or if you have funds, then where do you properly invest it so that your money grows and you're paying less tax? Then the third thing is, if you need to invest, you need to understand markets. Now, we need to understand one thing is that the author here, like Robert Kiyosaki, has been very clear, and he's used examples of people who have invested a lot on real estate and stock markets. So I will finish the whole talk, finish the whole book reading with the first chapter number, what we were supposed to start with, to say why we should be doing that. So for now, what he's saying is, if you need to invest into the markets, you need to study the markets, you need to know the markets, you need to know how to invest. So this is how he's defining financial education. The fourth most important thing is you can do whatever you want to save on the taxes, but you cannot go against the law. So that's where different laws come in different countries, that you do it in a manner so that you are not getting into the bad books of the government and becoming a defaulter in paying your taxes. And that's how your professionals will help you. So under knowing the law is tax advantage, like pay for expenses before it pays taxes. That is a whole area of expertise that is so exciting, but not necessary to get into unless you have sizable assets or a business. That means you don't need to already pay big amounts. How can you save on that when you start to invest, right? So this is something that somebody who is educated and a professional helps you out with knowing the law so that you don't go in the defaulters list. Then you have, of course, protection from lawsuits. So if you are trying to do this way, it's almost a very similar thing. So he's put it under tax advantages. Now, so in summary, I have again brought this down, is the rich with corporations and the people who work for corporations. So basically in the 3 chapters, he's talking about people who work for others and people who work from themselves. So the rich with corporations, he says they earn, they spend, and they pay taxes. So there are three things. So they are earning, they will also spend for themselves, and they will pay taxes, because you can't get away paying taxes. It's just that you be smart with the paying tax. Then on this other side is people who work for these corporations. Okay, are the people who are earning. Number two, they are paying taxes. Number three, they are spending. Okay, so that's it, right? So the sequence is they earn, they pay taxes, and they spend. As part of your overall financial strategy, we strongly recommend owning your own corporation wrapped around your asset. So you see the sequence: earn, spend, pay taxes. But here, people who work for corporations earn, pay taxes, and only spend. So they are not saving. They are not saving. They are not saving. Finally, they end up spending everything that they earn. This is exactly what Robert Kiyosaki is trying to say about financial education. Okay, that's what basically laws is. What are financial laws? Is you understand the law, but you educate yourself so that you're smart enough to save in spite of earning. And then because you're earning, because the government will take from you, because that's what goes to building your roads, building the hospitals, and funding a lot of stuff the country, and for the poor the schemes. But you're not sucked dry, so you be smart in how you pay your tax. Now, chapter 6 or lesson 5, the rich invent money. Okay, so he gives a very, very interesting example out here. Is that last night I took a break from writing and I watched TV program on the history of a young man called Alexander Graham Bell. Alexander Graham Bell was the man who invented telephone. The first hello. I know how many of us remember him, but I think all of us must be like, bless that man, bless that man. He's an immortal soul. From, landlines to mobiles to satellite phones. He's the man responsible for all that. So this is a small story about Graham Bell. Bell had just patented his telephone and was having growing pains because the demand for his new invention was so strong, needing a bigger company. He then went to the giant at that time, that was Western Union. So he went to a bank and he said, buddy, give me some money. That's what we do. Just go to the banks and we say, okay, just give me some money. And he asked them if they would buy his patent and his tiny company. He wanted 100,000 US dollars for the whole package. Okay. The president of Western Union scoffed at him and scowled and said, this is the door, go to the door. And I'm sure a lot of times we've had this, our loan applications have got rejected, or the banks have refused this loan. Now, what happened? A multi-billion-dollar industry emerged. The rest is history. That's how AT&T was born. So if you know about AT&T, it's one of the largest telecommunication companies in the US. Okay, so that is why next, where what Robert Kiyosaki goes on to say, that once we leave school, most of us know that it is not as much as a matter of college degrees or good grades that count. In the real world, outside of academics, something more than just grades is required. I have heard it called guts. Chuspa, balls. Chuspa, I think, is German. Balls, audacity, bravado, cunning, daring, tenacity, and brilliance. Okay, so if I want to say in simple desi, इसमें कितना दम है? Dum hai, dum hai. So you have a dream, you create a dream, you take that risk, and then you either get somebody smart to invest it, or you smart in it, invest it. So basically, he's saying that to be rich, yeah, you need guts. In fact, he's gone ahead in one of the things where I have marked it. He said it's not that smart people always earn. It is gutsy people who take the courage to do things which others don't do, who actually get wealthy. Okay. So inside each one of us is the brave, brilliant, and daring character. There is also the flip side of that character, people who could get down on their knees and beg if necessary. You will do whatever it takes. Either you will be audacious, have audacity and tenacity, or you will find your way, beg, or you will manipulate. That's why the word cunning comes, and get someone to believe in your dreams and invest, and then you grow rich. Okay. Yet, as a teacher, I recognized that it was excessive fear and self doubt that were the greatest detractors of personal genius. It broke my heart to see students know the answers, yet the lack of courage to act on the answer. Often in the real world, it is not the smart that get ahead, but the bold that get ahead. So I have underlined this. So, in my personal experience, your financial genius requires both technical knowledge as well as courage. If fear is too strong, then the genius within you is suppressed. So, here I want to quote, I had read something and I think that stayed with me all the time. It takes a few insane moments of courage to attain greatness. I'm reframing. I don't know who quoted this, but few insane moments, in a moment where you really go mad and you're mad and there's that madness that takes over you and you just take that risk. You have the courage and you have the guts. And those are the people who actually make it to greatness. Now, so again, there's another very interesting thing he's talking about in this chapter. He's talking about financial IQ. So we have done, so he's going back to say that why intelligence, financial, education is important and why financial IQ, that means developing the financial IQ is important. No one can answer that but you. Yet I can tell you why I myself do it. I do it because it is the most exciting time to be alive. So, Robert Kiyosaki believes that this is the most exciting time to be alive. I did rather be welcoming change than dreading change. I did rather be excited about making millions than worry about not getting a raise. This period we are in now is the most exciting time, unprecedented in our world's history. Generations from now on, people will look back at this period of time and remark at what an exciting era it must have been. It was the death of the old and the birth of the new. It was full of turmoil and it was exciting. So this book was published, I think, bestseller New York, and the publication date is
97.
97. So today we are sitting in 2024 and we are just getting over COVID. And you see, there has been a disruption. There has been a disruption all over, and new ways to earn. The old has gone and everything has changed. I mean, digitalization of the world has happened 15 years ahead. We've just zipped. If not for COVID, we would still be doing in person things and stuff like that. But we would not have gone and taken. And now, look, we have AI. So there's someone who's writing our emails, writing a book, singing a song, even doing a movie, everything. It's gone so fast. So, what Robert Kiyosaki, so these are the things I really like about the book, is that he says at every point, you need to abandon the old and hold the new. Times change. You need to change with the time. So that is why your financial literacy, guts, education, and IQ is something you need to keep on working. What happened yesterday may not be good today. What the market was doing yesterday, what the world was doing yesterday, and that's why stock markets are so volatile. Yesterday it's something else, and today it's something else. So he says you have to leave the old and work on the new. Today, I find so many people struggling often, working harder simply because they cling to the old ideas. They want things to be the way they were, they resist change. I know people who are losing their jobs or their houses, and they blame technology or the economy or their boss. Sadly, they fail to realize that they might be the problem. Like, there are times when you stand in the way of your progress. And then we are not able to see it, but we go around blaming you, and cry wolf. So, old ideas are their biggest liability. It is a liability simply because they fail to realize that while the idea or way of doing something was an asset yesterday, yesterday is gone. Yeah. Now, I'm going to read something else that I found very, very interesting from this chapter. Is there is a game called Cash Flow. Now, how many of you love board games? Yeah. Okay. So quickly tell me, what are your favorite board games?
I had played this cash flow with Mr. Deepak Batra.
Yeah.
Did
you enjoy
twice
it?
the time, yeah, twice the time he had made it, but really it was so enthusiastic and so energetic. I kind of say, I mean, addicted actually.
Okay.
So it was very nice actually, and ability to learn how to manage your cash.
Oh,
And
I
I'm
haven't played
playing
that.
yeah, I'm playing online as well.
Oh,
And
brilliant.
yeah, it is there in Robert in Rich Dad Poor Dad / Cash Flow.
Yes, yeah, yeah, it
Yeah,
is there. So I'm going to be
it's there.
reading bits and pieces of about the cash flow. So good. Anybody else or any other board game? It doesn't have to be cash flow. The closest I have played anything with
Top
money is
City,
Monopoly.
Ludo.
Yeah, Ludo, Snake and Ladder. Come
The
on,
Snake
I
and
know
everybody should be
Snake and
Ladder.
having the
Ladder, there's Cluedo, there's
Ludo.
Pictionary, there's
yeah, yeah.
Monopoly that my son loves, and he seems to be better than I am. I think these are the three, four that we keep sort of going back to.
Okay, so like I said, closest I have done to anything regards money, a board game. I have not tried cash flow, but is Monopoly. And I remember
Monopoly.
we used to play Monopoly. My son was very small, but he used to love the game. And he used to end up losing everything. He's in major debt. He owes his father money, he owes everything. Somehow, whatever I would collect, I would just give everything and say, give it to my son, and I would leave. And my husband would say, this is not right. This is cheating. You cannot do that to your son. So, anyway, so board games are a beautiful way to learn a lot of life's lessons. Okay. So,
True.
Cash Flow is this beautiful board game. And I'm not going to come out to the whole game because it becomes very meticulous. Yeah. We have 15 minutes and one more chapter to do. So, I'm going to quickly read. Just like a board game, the world is always providing us with instant feedback. We could learn a lot if we tuned in more. One day, not long ago, I complained to my wife that the cleaners must have shrunk my pants. My wife gently smiled and poked me in the stomach to inform me that the pants had not shrunk. His stomach had grown big. Something else has expanded. So that's what he's saying is how do you learn? So you learn beyond what you're conditioned to believe. You learn beyond the closed mindset of yours. The game Cashflow was designed to give every player personal feedback. Its purpose is to give you options. If you draw the board card and it puts you into debt, the question is now, what can you do? How many different financial options can you come up with? That is the purpose of the game, to teach players to think and create new and various financial options. I have watched this game played by more than 1,000 people. The people who got out of the rat race in the game, the quickest people are the people who understood numbers and have creative financial minds. So now he's adding the word creativity in terms of financial. Now, if we are book readers and if we love reading or writing, or we are entrepreneurs, or we are artists, or even we are cooking in the kitchen, yeah, and we are doing something innovative, that means all of us have the ability to create. So this whole creativity he wants us to use in terms of our financial planning. Okay, so again, he goes on to say that people who are rich are usually and often creative and take calculated risks. Yeah, so rich people are creative people. I think I won't deny that. We have most of the actors, most of the celebrities, the industrialists who have come out into this world, the inventors, who have come up and who have discovered or tried new ways to do it. They have creative minds and creative assets which they have used, and they are rich. Yes, they are rich. So there have been people playing cash flow who gain lots of money in the game, but they don't know what to do with it. So the next thing is you can earn the money, but then you should know what to do with it. Most of them have not been financially successful in life, in real life either. Everyone else seems to be getting ahead of them, even though they have money. And that is true in real life. There are a lot of people who have a lot of money and don't go ahead financially. So, limiting your options is the same as hanging on to the old ideas. So, again, Robert Kiyosaki is trying to say that you abandon the old and take on the new. So when the local sugar plantation closed, the company, he's talking about a friend 20 years ago, he was the richest of all my classmates. When the local sugar plantation closed, the company he worked for went down with the plantation. In his mind, he had but one option. That was the old option, work hard. The problem was he couldn't find an equivalent job that recognized his seniority in the old company. As a result, he is overqualified for the jobs he currently has, so his salary is lower. He now works 3 jobs to earn just enough to survive. Okay, so most people know only one solution: work hard, save, and borrow. And that's what Robert Kiyosaki says, that that is not going to make you rich. Yeah. So, why do you want to increase your financial intelligence? Because you want to be the kind of person who creates your own luck. So now he's talking about lucky, that fortune favors the brave and not the lucky. Yeah, you take whatever happens and make it better. Few people realize that luck is created, just as money is. And if you want to be luckier and create money instead of working hard, then your financial intelligence is important. If you're the kind of person who's waiting for the right thing to happen, you might wait for a long time. It's like waiting for all the traffic lights to go green for 5 miles and before starting up. Then there is another very interesting aspect which I wanted to share. He says that money is not real. Okay. He says the most people who make the most money and the fastest and the quickest don't even see money. And this is something he did in 1997. Now, yes, it is all digitalized. Where is money? It's all going through our accounts and transactions and numbers. So this is what he say. The single most powerful asset we all have is our mind. The money is in our mind. It is not money, actually. You're not exchanging cash. In the information age, money is increasing exponentially. A few individuals are getting ridiculously rich from nothing, just ideas and signing the right agreements. If you ask many people who trade stocks or other investments for a living, they see it done all the time. Often millions can be made simultaneously from nothing and by nothing. I mean, no money was exchanged. It is done via agreement, a hand signal in a trading pit, a blip on a trader's screen in Lisbon from a trader's screen in Toronto, and back to Lisbon, a call to my broker to buy a moment and later to sell. Money did not change hands, agreements did. So again, he's saying it's not about real money. Being wealthy is not seeing, bunches and bunches of gaddas of money. And I think he was right then. Now, so you can't have that kind of money. You have to, out there in numbers, and it has to be transparent, what you own, what you earn, how much you spend, what you pay for the taxes. So nobody actually gets to see their money except for numbers, going back and forth. So he says money is in the mind. Ideas which can generate that money, that is the true wealth. Your mind is your wealth and not literal money. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to come back to the first chapter. Before I finish, he also says that financial literacy is important because as you keep getting literate, okay, about your finances and keep yourself involved or get an expert involved, you come to know the good deals and the bad deals. You take risk, but when you look at an agreement, then you make a personal choice whether this agreement works with you or not, whether it'll work for you, whether it'll help your money grow. And so there are a lot of people, then they, because of experience, they start, making those kind of calls. Which are the agreements, which are the deals, which are the deal making and the deal breakers. And that's why some people, you say they earn so much, but then they have a deal breaking deal and everything is gone. And some people, they start with nothing, but they have a deal making deal and they are out there. Okay. Now, coming back to my most favorite chapter in all the 3 chapters that I have been chosen to read today is Mind Your Own Business. Okay. Now, because this will be aired in a public place and it's going to be posted, so we have to be very neat. Say, mind your business. So you fill that word with whatever, you fill that pause with whatever you want. Now, here, mind your business is not about don't go snooping around with what the neighbor is doing or what, somebody else is doing. Mind your businesses. What business am I in? Okay. What business am I in? Our current education system makes us ready to work for others and not for yourself. So the difference between your business and your profession is, for example, if you ask somebody that, are you in, what do you do? And he will say, I'm a banker. Then this book finally goes about to asking that, do you own a bank? And then the person will say, no, I work for a bank. Okay, so you understand the very subtle sense of owning a corporation and working for a corporation. Yeah, so I'm connecting the dots from what I read from the last chapter. That's when he said people who own the corporations, they earn, they spend, and they pay taxes. But the people who work for the corporation, they earn, they what to say, they spend, but they earn taxes, and that's it. It stops. Earning happens, but finally they end up only spending. They are not growing rich. Okay, so Robert Kiyosaki is very clearly telling us that don't confuse your profession with your business. Your business is something else and your profession is something else. And the business part is very, very interesting here. Okay. So here he's quoting the founder of MACD. So he was sitting with a group of students. He had gone to give a lecture, and he was sitting with a group of students, and that's exactly the question that there was. It was asked that, "What do you do? You sell burgers, and you're going rich by selling burgers." But he says, "No, I don't sell burgers. I do sell burgers, but I'm growing rich by working with real estate." So all the franchisees who were franchising MACD were looking at A's properties, they were buying it, they were owning it, yeah, or whatever the rentals and the income, because he was looking at strategic points. MACD is in the most strategic and happening point. MACD is put in a place and that decides the market value of that street. Yeah. So that's why he was getting into real estate. What he was trying to say is burgers cannot make that much of money for me. So he's saying, I'm a salesman. I have sold so many things in my life. Now I'm selling burgers. So my profession is being a salesman, but my business is about doing something I'm very passionate about, and that is real estate. So here, Robert Kiyosaki says that people should find out what their passion is all about and make sure they use their passion to keep earning for them. Okay. You may have a day job. You may have a day job, but that's not necessary that that day job will keep earning for you, because when you have a day job, how do you depend on your growth? You depend on the increment. You depend that when you get a raise, you depend that when you will get some free time and accumulate your leaves so that you can live your life. So again, there's a very beautiful concept that Robert Kiyosaki brings in out here is difference between making a living and making a life. Making a living is what? I pay my rent, I pay for my children, I pay for my children's school, and then I get food on the table. But what about making a life? Making a life is money gives me the pleasure to follow my passion, to go for a holiday, to spend quality time, to give me the freedom to live my dreams and to live my aspirations. So here he says wealthy people are those people who are not just sitting and accounting for their time and only the time that they spend on their desk, work overtime, work, and on weekends and burn themselves out, still earn only that much, pay heavily on taxes, still spend, then they borrow and they take up loans, and they are still stuck in the rat race. But here is this one very smart person, okay, who, while he is not working, he is doing something where he's earning money. Okay. Now, so I didn't know how to explain this better, because I thought how I perceived it. So I decided that I will do it in a very simple manner using myself as an example. So what he says is that making a life is about having your aspirations. Okay. So what are your aspirations? What are your aspirations? Not just making roti, kapra, and makan only on the table. So the way I looked at this was this, okay, this is just a personal thing. Like, we can all read the book, you can pick up the book, but the essence of this chapter is this. When I wanted to do my further studies, I always wanted to be a writer, because this is a book reading club, so we come back to books and writing and authors. So I always wanted to be a writer. I wanted to write a book. But my parents, unanimously, being a Bengali, they were very clear, oh God, you have to wear those thick fat glasses, study, and you have to do a professional course only. So my father was very clear that either you do your engineering, and my mother was, you do your medicine. Engineering I didn't do. I said, I don't understand numbers, jack shit. I'm not creative with numbers, I'm creative with words. But they did not allow me to pursue literature, or they did not allow me to pursue any art subject. So finally I did my undergrad and I became a physiotherapist. Yeah. Then I went ahead. I worked in Apollo. I worked in Apollo Chennai. Then I hit the customer care division of the first private cord blood company in India. In India, I worked there. We waited till the their certification came in. ISO certification came in, and I quit because I wanted to use my creativity and my mind to do something different. So then I went ahead to curate these prenatal classes, which was never heard of, the Indian version of the Lamaze concept abroad, so that I could counsel pregnant women. And that happened because I had a terrible childbirth experience. But as I started my practice there, again I realized that I was working on weekends mostly. I had to meet all the families. I was very clear I was not going to do these counseling sessions for women. I wanted their husbands. So if I wanted their husbands, I wanted their family, I have to work on weekends. And more working women needed this help. So I was doing this on weekends. So that meant I'm not able to go on a holiday with my family. There's so much of planning, precious time away from my son. And that's when I started thinking, only when I work am I earning. Only when I see a client, I'm earning. Only when my center runs, I'm able to pay my bills. In fact, I had a surgery where I had two hernias in my abdomen, and I had to get back to work within 1 week post surgery because I couldn't cancel on my clients. They have an expecting due date. So I can't tell them, oh, wait, I will take a month to recover and come back by the time they've delivered. And for me to return or refund so much of their course fees would have been a disaster. Here I'm sick paying my hospital bills, and there I can't afford to pay for my, to run my overheads. That's when finally I said, Mom and Dad, enough. I'm doing what I love to do the most. And then I started writing my books. So I went ahead to start writing books in my subject as well. As much as I love writing fiction and other subjects on mental health, which is a new thing which I'm harnessing, I wrote books on pregnancy for a man, a book on pregnancy for a man in Hindi, for mental health, for delivery, for different kinds of things. So what was that doing is, even if Rakhi Kapoor is on a holiday and she's not consulting her expecting clients, the books are selling and it gets me revenue. Then the book is going around everywhere and people are getting to know about my center, and then they sign up for the sessions. And the next thing is, people who cannot do a full course, they do a part-time course. The book takes care. So I'm taking care of my money, I'm trying to get my revenue. And finally I realized, okay, I am earning while I am not at office. Yeah, so that's the power. So this can hold forth for everything, hold forth for anybody. It can be books, it can be art, it can be painting, it can be cooking, it can be baking. So what Robert Kiyosaki is, use your mind, use your aspiration. So now I love to live my life by going on long treks. I love to go on holidays. I love to see places on the map we've never heard about. Like, there's a beautiful place called Warnamunde. It's a fisherman's village in Germany. It's a picture perfect fairy tale town you'd have never imagined. So, when you start making a life, instead of only focusing on making a living, you also live a very, very fulfilling life and get to create all your aspirations. So that is the whole essence of what he's trying to say is wealth. So the whole beauty of this book that I gathered is, he's not saying it. He's a Japanese. No, Japanese are very clear with their minds. They're very systemic and very, very process oriented, and efficiency to the last second. But there is so much of emotion in Rich Dad and Poor Dad. He's actually saying that wealth is not about just how much of money you stack in your bank account. Wealth is not about how much taxes you pay. Wealth is not about how much you're earning and what your salary is. Wealth is, if you're living with passion, you're using the power of your mind, you are trying to be courageous in your life, you are taking the risks, and you're making a life and not a living. So this was the best way in which I could interpret, what he was trying to say. Though there are a lot of other technical stuff, but you could go through the book. So start minding your own business is about, what is the business that you are in, the business that if you get into, you have your passion in it, and it will earn for you when you're really not slogging, and it will earn for you smartly, and you start growing. And if you're passionate, then what you do is you start giving your 100%. So all these things like hard work and all that automatically fills in. Here I want to say another very important thing. I will close the call because I think we're at 8:05, but we started late. So I would like to finish is, when I say mind your own business, I mean to build and keep your asset columns strong. talking about asset columns and he's talking about income columns. Once a dollar goes into it, never let it come out. So, what are your assets? Assets are something that you have. You go, it doesn't spend, but it only grows. Think of it this way. Once a dollar goes into your asset column, it becomes your employee. That means it starts working for you, it generates more revenue. The best thing about money is that it works 24 hours a day and can work for generations. So keep your daytime job. Be a great hardworking employee, but keep building that asset column. So, like, for example, if you're writing books or you have a business or you have invented something and you have a patent, it can just keep earning money for all your life and for generations to come. As your cash flow grows, you can buy some luxuries. An important distinction is that rich people buy luxuries last, while poor and the middle class tend to buy luxuries first. The poor and the middle class often buy luxury items such as big houses, diamonds, furs, jewelry, or boats because they want to look rich. They look rich, but in reality, they just get deeper in debt and on credit. Is a reward for investing in and developing a real asset. Yeah. So this is what he says is what most people do is they impulsively go out and buy a new car or some other luxury on credit. They may feel bored and just want a new toy. Buying a luxury on credit often causes a person to sooner or later actually rescind the luxury that they bought because it puts them into debt. So what he says is that earn when you spend, you know that your money has grown. So for example, you have invested into a business and that keeps growing and growing in stocks or in real estate or in art or whatever, and out of what you have created the wealth from wealth, when you buy that luxury, that is what you gift yourself. You feel entitled to it, you feel proud about it, you feel happy about it, and then it doesn't pinch your pocket because you're not taking it out from what is just coming on in your income and then struggling to make your meat ends, but you're doing it from your asset. And it makes you grow as a person, even if the money is if the fundamental principal amount of money goes less. It's okay, it'll grow. That asset is going to create assets. So this was the first chapter that we were supposed to do, is minding your own business. Instead of doing that first, I thought that I will do it in the end and tie the knots. Why he says that financial intelligence is important, IQ with financial IQ is important. Have guts, be smart. You don't have to all the time work. And like again, he says, not everybody is going to go out and open a business, but you can have a day job. And with today's social media and so many opportunities, everybody can be having a side income. Everybody can aspire to be rich. And true wealth is about living a holistic life. That's that.
Very well explained, Rakhi. The way you had explained, it's amazing. As if I'm going through with that complete book. You are the rock star, actually.
Thank you. It's very kind of you. I hope I didn't bore you all because I
नहीं,
don't
so the way you are explaining it's something like एकदम boom होता है, तो बोर होने का
You
सवाल ही
make the
नहीं उठता.
subject come alive. These are not necessarily easy things to
Correct.
explain. So
Correct,
you made
correct.
it come alive. Thank you so much.
I was thoroughly watching you, the way you are explaining. That was amazing, Rakhi.
Thank you.
Great.
Thank you, Rakhi.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for being so patient and hearing me out. And thank you. And I'm sure nobody has any questions. It's like, oh God, Rich Dad, kitab pad lete. Let's go read the book and let's see what Robert Kiyosaki. To understand him a little better, you can read the book and watch some of his reels and short videos on YouTube, or he's on Instagram also. Don't get scared. He can come out as a very strong and a very
I know he is very blunt
Yeah.
when he is talking, actually. I saw his videos and quite he was very, very shrewd, but by, intentionally he is not. He wanted to explain. But you know why the people takes the perception and the way that is different, and he wanted to make them understand by making himself a rude. That's it.
Correct.
Otherwise, he is
He has an opinion and he stays by it.
Yeah. He
the
strongly
first book. Even my husband recommended me. To read this book. The Rich Dad Poor Dad. So he's he had 2-3 times he had read this book, and he is loved the way he is explaining the money part actually.
True.
So good.
On that
So
note, once
Huh.
again, thank you so much, Rakhi. And
thank you.
a lot to learn from the way you present as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much.
Correct.
Thank you
Take
so
care.
much.
Good night.
So take care. Good night. And
Thank
arigato
you. Good
gozaimasu.
night.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rakhi.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.